Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about mysticism and manifestation. I guess that's the best word to use. You'll see where my thoughts are going in a moment. So, I changed the name of my channel, and I changed the name of the channel because I really wanted the title of the channel to reflect the woman I'm speaking to. Mysticism is the direct or personal experience of the divine, of source, of universal truth, of infinite intelligence. And this is without using an external authority, right? Without dogma, beyond dogma, a knowing, a direct experience that's past purely intellectual knowledge. So it's not about believing in something, it's about experiencing oneness with everything. It's about knowing through experience what really can't be put into words and can't be fully explained in words. So some elements of mysticism are things like direct connection to the sacred. So this is without needing a mediator, a religion, a doctrine, no priests, nobody to, no book, no, no scrolls, nothing outside of your personal experience. Another one is inner revelation. So this is truth that you realize within yourself that feel absolute, even if you can't logically explain them. The third one is unity consciousness. So it's a felt sense of that everything is connected, that everything is interconnected, and that you're both an individual and a part of a greater whole. And then the fourth one is transformation through experience. And this is the direct experience of mystical experiences that shift your perception, that shift your identity, and that really shift your relationship with life itself. So this is not religion. Because while religion often provides a structure, practices, beliefs about the divine, mysticism is the direct experience of the divine itself. And so you can be a mystic within a tradition or outside of any tradition at all. And so here's some examples so you can get a clearer picture of what mystical experiences might look like. So picture a moment if you're in when you're in nature and you feel yourself dissolve into the landscape. This just happened to me recently where I was walking down a trail and I was looking around at the trees newly budding and flowers blooming, and I just thought to myself, this is so beautiful. And then I had this like feeling like that's me. Like I saw myself in the plants and trees, and I knew that I was looking at myself. It was the weirdest thing. So, another time this could happen is when you're deep in meditation, right? Where you just sense this feeling of overwhelming unconditional love and infinite awareness, right? Where you feel like everything is you and you are it, and there is only one. Now, this is something that really can only be explained to people who have experienced it, but another one is synchronicities, right? This is this type of synchronicity I'm speaking about is like when they're so precise and so personal that you feel cradled by something bigger. An example of this was when I first started studying intuition and I was learning with a mentor, and she asked us to ask for proof in the real. And so I asked my spirit guides, universe, God, doesn't matter. I asked the divine to show me proof in the real that that I was on the right path, or that there was an intelligence that existed beyond myself. And I had asked for feathers. And the next day a bird exploded outside of my bedroom. And so it's just this sudden knowing that, and it could just be a sudden knowing, right? Or it just could be like what feels like a download. It's just like a sudden perspective shift, right? That changes the way in which you see the world. And when you approach this life in a mystic way, you trust your direct experiences over rigid rules or dogma. You become the authority of your reality because what you feel is sacred and it's nature and it's natural to you. And so manifestation then starts to become less about getting stuff and more about aligning with the current of your soul's natural desires. And so, in this understanding, we understand that if we desire something, it's because we're recognizing it, because it's already part of who and what we are. And it's because we are everything. And so I have manifested from this place, from this knowing that I am and making a decision and sticking to it, way before I learned about the different kinds of manifestation in the subconscious mind and shadow work and all of this. And so I'm going to tell you what mysticism, what this is for me in the context of manifestation. And then I'm going to tell you about my experiences. And I hope that you get something, I trust that you'll get something valuable out of this. So what this means for me is being a mystic, someone who intentionally creates my reality. I am the operant creator of my life experience. You are the operant creator of your experience. There is no separation, right? So we live our life as the persona, as I live as Angela. But also in my mind is the divine, right? The divine that comes through me. So there is the higher mind, which is source energy itself, the universe itself, that is flowing through me. That's where the mystical experiences come from. And then there's Angela, the persona, this person who's had all these experiences and has thoughts and feelings and all of this. And so it's understanding that there is only your experience, that you are source, and that you are identifying with the source, the divine, the creator inside of you, right? And this is the ultimate manifestation hack, because this reason that this is so powerful, and especially for midlife women who are mystic minded like I am, it's because you've likely gotten to a place where you've already tried everything. You've done the vision boards and the books, and you've read done the energy work, and you've taken courses, and you're probably no longer interested in whether or not people care about you or care about what you think, right? You're probably no longer interested if people think you're delusional, right? Because honestly, they probably already do. And many of us have always been different. And so even though we've trained ourselves at times to conform, and we're trying to undo that now, that the ways we tried to make ourselves be what we thought we should be, there's always sort of been a thread of authenticity that sort of runs through us, right? We're the sheep, the black sheep, the mystic, the wild one. And others disagreeing with our worldview is probably nothing new. And so what is new in this moment is this decision, this point where if we don't figure it out how to make manifestation actually work in a sustainable, sovereign way, then we're just going to have to give up and settle for what is. And that's just not what our soul signed up for. And we know it, but we're kind of tired of it. You get exhausted, and you feel mixed up and confused all the time, and you keep hearing things that you think you know, and you can't figure out how come you can't put it into practice. And you just get to a point where it's exhausting. But let me tell you something, that this is a really good place to be, because here, this is the place where you're willing, where you're more willing than ever to let go of old beliefs, let go of your old identities, your old patterns, and your old limitations. You become willing to really step into something bigger. And so I'm going to go deeper into these two types of manifesting and why mixing them keeps us stuck, okay? So if you've ever felt like manifestation sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, and you're doing all the things, and then you're sitting here wondering why the universe must have just forgot your address because what you ordered isn't showing up, this is probably why. And this is what I've recently learned and was able to get results in my life. And now looking at my whole journey from a broader perspective, from the outside of the situation, I know exactly what I was missing the whole time, or what I wasn't missing in the beginning and was missing in the middle because I was giving away my power to things outside of myself, and then how I came back around full circle. So there's two completely different kinds of manifesting. I don't want to call them methods or principles or techniques, because they're not. There's just two different ways to look at it and two different ways in which it works, right? And most of us unknowingly mash them together, which creates resistance, confusion, and inconsistency. So we're going to break that down. So you have subconscious reprogramming, right? And this is cause and effect. This is what most people learn first, but it's not what I learned first. This is rooted in the idea that your deeply held beliefs, your emotions, your patterns, your subconscious identity all shape your reality. And it's true. If you believe love is unsafe, or money is hard, or you're not enough, then you'll unconsciously act, choose, and attract situations that reflect and reinforce those beliefs. And it's the truth. What the tools look like that fall under the heading of this kind of manifestation is things like inner child healing, shadow work, subconscious reprogramming, journaling, hypnosis, affirmations. Now, this works, and I'm not going to say that it doesn't, because when you consistently shift your beliefs, your outer world gradually moves and begins to reflect those new patterns. But this can take time, right? And where it keeps people stuck is if you're constantly digging, fixing, rewriting your beliefs, digging through your subconscious, trying to rewrite your thoughts to be perfect before you can shift into the identity, then we stay trapped in these healing loops, right? We start chasing the thing we want to manifest. And that therein lies the problem, because we start giving our power away to reprogramming, to living in the end, to all of these. And we do it with both sides, right? We do it with both kinds of manifestation. So that's the first type of manifestation. The second is decision and identity-based manifesting. This is the operant power manifesting. This is the instant override method, right? Well, where it's based on the truth of that you are the operant power, the decider of your reality. You make a full-bodied identity level decision about who you are and what is true now for you. And reality reorganizes itself to reflect that. This is quantum identity first manifesting. And so when you decide, I am now a woman who calls in sacred aligned love, moves through the world as abundant and supportive, is fully safe in her own wisdom, you literally override years of subconscious programming in a moment, because identity trumps your old patterns. Who you identify with, whether you're attached to the persona, the person who has your past experiences, the person who might have had a hard time manifesting up until now, the person who has trouble forgiving, the person who can't let go of the past, the person who's repeating patterns, the person who feels like they're about to manifest the thing that they want and then it just never happens. We were identifying with that. But when you rewrite that through identity, through a decision of making a decision and then not budging from that decision, that's when we can override that and we don't have to be stuck in this healing and trying. Because the truth is, it's not about a mental wish. It's a deep, visceral, full-bodied choosing the version of you who already has it. And I know that this can be difficult, but it's very simple. And I think here's where we get stuck. So if we skip awareness of our patterns, right, we might decide that these new identities, we might decide on a new identity, right? And then subconsciously sabotage it because we haven't learned to hold that frequency. And this is where mentorship, embodiment, and practice really make a difference. So I'm going to talk, I hope that this is clear. I'm going to talk about how they work together and when they don't work together. So if you don't, the thing is, we think we need to be constantly and endlessly fixing ourselves, right? We think we have to think positive. We think that we have to control our thoughts, but none of those things are actually true. You don't have to think positive. You don't have to believe it, and you don't have to control your thoughts. You don't need to endlessly fix yourself. You don't need to pretend that what's going on in your life isn't happening. Like, you don't have to be delusional in the sense where you deny what's really going on in your life. So this is how it works. You decide first, and then you use the subconscious tools as needed, not to become worthy, but to clear what tries to pull you out of the decision that you make. And most people do it backwards, right? I need to heal this before I can have that. But it's really, I decide I am this now, and anything that isn't aligned is no longer mine to carry, and then I get to let go of them. The thoughts, they're going to come up. We can't stop them. But are we identifying with them? Or are we just understanding that they're an echo of our previous persona, right? This is where the magic really lives. How identity manifesting really works. How this really works is when you identify with the source within you, not as a concept, something out there, but as a lived, embodied truth. You claim your rightful place as the creator of your experience. And I used to think that this was spiritual bypassing. That's not true. That's actually stopping us from really stepping into our power. It was stopping me from stepping into my power for so long. So instead of saying, I hope love finds me, I would declare, I am love embodied. I am love embodied. I am love. And those who meet me, meet love. Instead of like, I wish I could feel abundant. It's more like I move through this world as a naturally abundant woman. Everything I need flows to me effortlessly. Instead of I'm trying to trust myself, you live as I am the authority of my own life. My wisdom is sacred. My intuition is my truth. Right? And if you're curious to know which one of these you're using most and where you might be blending them in a way that keeps you stuck, I'm going to put links below the video for one-on-one sessions so that we can figure this out together. So the truth about why we're stuck and how to fix it. So if you're where I was just even a couple months ago, if you've been trying to manifest your soulmate, your dream life, or your next level self, and it's still not happening, I need you to hear this because I just learned the lesson of a lifetime and I had to have this experience. So it's not because you don't follow through. It's not because you don't know enough. It's not because you're not spiritual enough. It's not because you haven't done enough shadow work. In fact, the moment I stopped obsessing over fixing myself, subconscious reprogramming, and all of that, and I just owned what I wanted, it came to me. So let me tell you what happened to me. 5 years ago, less than a year after I decided I wanted to manifest my soulmate on purpose, he stepped into my life. Without knowing anything about subconscious reprogramming, shadow work, or Neville Goddard, I had never heard any of that stuff. I was a year out of a sober house. And during that first year in the sober house, I listened to a lot of Abraham Hicks. And I had driven myself crazy thinking I had to think positive. And I had already given that up. And I decided, I don't know, I heard it somewhere, like the best relationship advice I had ever heard, that if you want to have the relationship that you want, then you have to become it. And so I literally sat down and wrote what I wanted in a partner. And then I worked on becoming those things in my everyday life, in my relationships with my family and my friends. I literally tried to embody those traits, right? I literally just made a decision. This is what I want, and I'm not settling, period. And no matter what, I stuck to it. So when people showed up, and they did, that mirrored my old patterns, the unavailable ones, the charming ones with the nice apartments and cute kittens, the ones that my old self would have said yes to out of boredom or loneliness or just wanting attention, I said no. And that's what I call now my sacred no. And every time I used it, I moved closer and closer to what I really wanted. So little did I know I had already met my soulmate. We were friends. So, but before we could meet in person, we had talked for months and we were really close because we had a lot in common. We were into the same kind of things. Before we could meet in person, he got back with his ex. So I moved on, right? And in that in-between space, life sent me tests, people, situations, old patterns, all showing up to see if I'd repeat my past. And every time I chose differently. Eventually, I reached a point where I genuinely didn't care. If I met my soulmate. I loved my life. I loved my freedom. I loved being on my own. I loved focusing on my path. I had built a beautiful life and it was so good that I actually wasn't missing anyone. And that's when it happened. One day I noticed my friend was posting again on IG and his ex wasn't in the pictures anymore. And we reconnected and he told me, if it's not you, it's no one. I'm not dating anyone again unless it's you. And here we are, 5 years later. And so the shift wasn't about learning more or healing everything perfectly. It was about energetic identity, deciding what I wanted, owning it, and not settling, even when it was tempting. That's alignment, that's embodiment, that's identity, and you don't need to be fully healed to start living it. And so the funny thing, and I'll go deeper into the story in my next video, and I also want to hear what you want to know most. What are the questions that you have so I can answer them in my next videos? The funny thing is that I did it, I made it work, and then I created a course on it and I sold it and my clients were getting results. But here I was now becoming an online entrepreneur for the first time, and I was paying attention to too many people, and there were people out there who had all this success and had all of these accolades and money and whatever other wins that they had. And I thought that I had to do what they do in order to be successful. And here I was already successful. And I actually pinched myself off then from the success. And for a long time, I struggled. I had a couple clients here and there throughout the whole time. I have never been clientless since I started this. But I have not I pinched myself off from calling new people in. I pinched myself off from being able to sell the offers that I created because I was doing it from a place where I was giving my power away, right? And that never works. That's when I started learning about the subconscious mind. And that's when I had already done shadow work in AA, but I didn't even know what shadow work. When I learned that, I thought, well, maybe I need to do more shadow work. But the thing is, I already had done the shadow work. I already, in some ways, knew how to overpower the subconscious mind. I had already done it, but I was second guessing myself. And so I've spent the last couple years in a manifestation rabbit hole where I've been actually in the way of creating what I've really wanted to create. And so now that I'm starting to see, step back into the identity creation, the way that I actually created my soulmate, I'm now doing that again in my daily life. And I'm starting to get the most beautiful results. And so now for the first time in my life, I'm actually able to sit here and be completely honest and say to you that this works for me with money now as well. And it works for me now with everything else. And so now I'm ready to share it. So if you're stuck chasing your future, please stop. Just decide what you want and honor it with your sacred no. Live your life now. There is only now. There is no future. You can create your next moment from now, but you have to create it now. And trust that the right people, the right opportunities, and that miracles are already orbiting you. It's just that you're not in the perception where you can quite see it at this moment. And so if you're ready to move from chasing to choosing and you'd like some help, I'm going to put a link for a one-on-one session in the comments below. Please ask your questions. I would love to make videos answering your specific questions about this. I'll see you soon.